Hello to the world and welcome to my very first ever tier list. I took a great deal of time to find some wonderful screenshots, footage, and gameplay styles to come up with what I consider to be a relatively accurate tier list of Civilization VII's current 12 natural wonders. Please note that due to the major mechanical changes involved by Isabella's unique traits where she's almost guaranteed to start with a natural wonder and even gets 2 times the natural wonders production on top of the +2 gold per worked natural wonder tile memento, I decided to separate her and include her as her own listing. So during this tier list, we'll go through each of the 12 natural wonders twice. Once for Isabella and once for everybody else. Now, before we begin, can you please take some time to like and subscribe? Doing so will ensure a random puppy somewhere in the world enjoys a long, happy life. So please, do it for the puppy's sake. Please? Anyhow, let's get into it. Hello to everybody and welcome to my very first tier list. You're probably going to notice up front that it's actually a little bit different from all the other tier lists that you've probably seen thus far. I'm using GIMP. I'm not using the general tier list website. I'd rather do my own little icons because then I get a little bit more control over what kind of information is shown up on the screen. As such, you're probably going to notice these lovely little icons being used all over the place. I have all 12 of the wonders already set up. I went in, I got the screenshots for myself. I even got a little bit of footage to go for each of the screenshots as well. So everything is designed to be as conducive and quick. All you have to do is scroll to the very end and get all the information that you need. You could probably screenshot it and share it amongst your friends at that point. That's what the intention is for. What you're going to notice in the top right hand corner though is a little Isabella and the memento icon right beside there. I'm going to be adding that to all of the Isabella ones. So I'm going to have the Grand Canyon, for instance, is going to be for everybody. And then I'm going to make a second Grand Canyon out there just for Isabella. I'm going to rate it differently than everybody else. Okay, so let's get into it. Beginning with the Grand Canyon, I'd like to remind everybody that it has a +2 science on flat terrain in the settlement, which actually makes this considerably very good to have as a starting natural wonder. I like the Grand Canyon. I don't particularly like the base yields for actually working the tiles. You only get, what, 2 culture and 4 happiness. I don't consider happiness to be particularly good super early on. There are so many other ways to control happiness later on in the antiquity age that I'm just not a big fan of happiness. You're going to notice that with a lot of the wonders in the future is that I rate happiness pretty much bottom barrel. Regarding Grand Canyon, though, I do consider it a very good wonder to have initially. You're probably going to think that I'm kind of crazy for what I'm about to do, though. Regarding Isabella, however, I do not consider this to be as good of a wonder. Now, why would I give her a lesser rating than one of the other wonders, or for everybody else? Because she can't really make use of the yields. She gets ×2 on the culture and the happiness, but again, that's what, 4 tiles for culture, so you get at most 16 culture out of it. That doesn't sound like a whole lot for what you're giving up. You're going to want to work on growth in the early game. You're going to want to work on production in the early game. You don't get any food out of the tile working. It's just not amazing. It is nice to have, but it's not something I go out of my way with. And for that reason, this is going to be the only time you're going to see me rate Isabella's version of the natural wonder lower. And the reason why, obviously, is because I don't think that you get ×2 on the science for the flat terrain, and it just doesn't work as well as it should as a result. It's just not as good as what you would get otherwise, and that's why I consider it slightly lower. Moving on to the Great Barrier Reef, I consider this to be one of the best, maybe not the best, but one of the absolute best wonders that you can get in the game. If you happen to start next to it as a regular civilization or leader, you are lucky. This is a great natural wonder to start next to. You get +2 science on all adjacent marine terrain. You get 2 science on each and every of the workable tiles, plus the food, which means you're not going to hamper your growth by taking the science. So you get, what, 8 science based off of that, plus all the extra science of working on the marine around it. So for every fishing boat or fishing pit that you put down, you're getting extra science. It's a great wonder to have. But when it comes to Isabella, it's even better. It is one of the absolute best for Isabella. Maybe not the absolute best, but it definitely belongs in the S tier. I love starting with this wonder. I won't restart if I get it. It's that good. It is absolutely wonderful. It gives you a great head start in the early game. If you start next to it, you're going to be rocking all of your opponents with better technology, guaranteed. Love this wonder. Love it, love it, love it. Now comes one that might actually be a little controversial for some, and the reason why is because of the adjacency bonus and the initial 6 food for it, but I don't consider this natural wonder to be particularly worth it. In fact, there are times where I consider this wonder to be a bit of a hamper, and for that reason, when you're not playing as Isabella and you get stuck with this natural wonder, you might want to relocate. I don't like the adjacency bonus, particularly regarding rural tiles, especially since a lot of the tiles next to the Gullfoss aren't really good to work anyways. At best, you get like a couple woodcutter and maybe a farm or two. It's just not amazing. The production bonus is a little nice. You can get up to 6 extra production bonus on there. The culture bonus is a little nice, but it's just not great. When it comes to settling next to it, making use of the freshwater, you end up losing some bonus for it because your city tile doesn't count as a rural tile. It counts as a quarter tile, so you don't even get the adjacency bonus by settling next to it and making use of the freshwater. What a joke, what a travesty. I don't like this natural wonder. I think it belongs down in F tier. It's a bit of a hamper. When it comes to Isabella, however, obviously 12 food is hard to scoff at. It's actually really impossible to scoff at. Just for that fact alone, I consider it somewhat worth to have for Isabella. I wouldn't get on my way to settle there, mind you, but it's good enough that if you happen to settle nearby there or even beside there, you're not going to hate life as Isabella. 12 food is really, really good for one tile. I mean, even 6 food is really good for one tile, but is it worth giving up another tile's production? Is it worth giving up growth of your city span, of your borders? No, I just don't think it is. Even if it's at the edge and you're using that to expand your borders, you're not making use of the fresh water, which makes that a worthless aspect of the wonder anyways, and you're probably not going to get all the adjacencies in, and even if you do manage to get all the adjacencies in, it's just not good enough to be worth the trouble. I consider this natural wonder barely worth it as Isabella, and for everybody else, I consider this one a waste. Next up is Hoerikwaggo, and I love this wonder. I love it as everybody else. I love it as Isabella. This is just a genuinely good wonder. It's like Gullfoss, except really, really, really good. Not only do you get the food bonus, you get the culture bonus, you even get a little bit of happiness bonus if you happen to settle directly next to it with your city. You get all the other quarters bonuses if you put like an altar next to it or whatever. Anything like that, it is a good bonus to have. I'm not a big fan of happiness, but it is nice to have. It's good to have. It's just good to have. But the real benefit of this is when you're playing as Isabella. If you're playing as Isabella and you start next to Hoerikwaggo, you are loving life. You are expanding faster than anybody else. You're looking at probably up to 40 or even 50 food within like 10 turns. That's how fast it goes. That's how fast your growth goes. It is absolutely insane if you settle next to this natural wonder as Isabella. You're getting 8 food and 4 culture just for working one tile. Absolutely wonderful. And how many tiles is there for Hoerikwaggo? 4 or 5 tiles on average. So what are you looking at? You're looking at 32 to 40 food just from that alone. There's 16 to 20 culture just from that alone. And yeah, you are giving up 5 population to work the tiles, but the huge amount of culture that you're getting off of that, plus the food. Like, it's not either or, it's both. You get growth and you get tech, technically. Like, civics is obviously tech. It's just a different form of tech, so consider it tech. Consider culture tech. You're getting growth and tech. That's huge. Gargantuan. Love this wonder. Alright, so we're going to get into one that might be a little controversial here, Iguazu Falls. Now, the fact that it's going to be a little controversial is because I consider this a slightly better version of Gullfoss, and for that reason alone, I put it in the C tier for everybody. If you happen to start next to this one, it really isn't that bad. You can settle next to it, and you get the adjacency bonus from the production to your city immediately, meaning you get +2 production just by starting next to it or settling next to it. It's great. It's not super duper great. It's not game changing. It's not ridiculously overpowered like starting next to the Great Barrier Reef, but it's good enough that you're not going to be upset to have it there. It's not a detriment. I mean, I don't like the fact that you have a fat river tile next to it. I don't like the fact that a lot of the tiles that are next to the Iguazu Falls and Gullfoss being garbage tiles on average. Usually it's like forest tiles, or maybe you'll get lucky and get like a clay pit tile off of that, but it's usually just trash. And that makes the adjacency better for Iguazu Falls than it does for Gullfoss, because when it's garbage tiles, you're putting buildings there, you're putting your quarters there, you're putting your altar there, you're putting your granary there, you're putting your brick pit there, you're putting your woodcutter there, and Iguazu Falls can make use of that way better than Gullfoss can, because obviously that's not rural, that's quarters. And Iguazu Falls can get a heck of a lot of production just from that alone. Not including the fat river tile, you're going to get, what, +10 production off of 5 tiles? That's pretty good. And you get, I mean, a little bit of food off of it, and it's not bad. And regarding Isabella, obviously that little bit of food is pretty nice, considering all the other bonuses that I talked about. The fact that it's actually kind of useful to settle next to it. Yeah, Iguazu Falls deserves a B tier. I think it's better than Gullfoss in every imaginable way. It's just the better version of Gullfoss. And, yeah, I don't know what to say about it. Alright, here comes another controversial one. And the reason why I consider this one controversial is because it's an immediate. You don't have to build anything to make use of the production. You just work the tiles and you get a little bit of happiness bonus on it. But I don't know. I just don't like Mount Kilimanjaro. The reason why is because it has the same detriment that Zhangjiajie has and the Grand Canyon has and Hoerikwaggo has. You can't walk around it, but the bonuses that you get from it as everybody that isn't Isabella just really isn't worth it. What is it, 6 production and 12 happiness? The happiness is kind of okay at that point once you get into the double digits, especially when you're dealing with happiness problems later on in Antiquity. But, I mean, starting next to this one kind of sucks. It's not as good as it should be. I think Kilimanjaro kind of needs a little bit of a buff, and for that reason, I think it belongs in the C tier. Regarding Isabella, she can make, obviously, better use of it. I honestly like this one just because you get double the production off of that with Isabella, double the happiness, 24 happiness. I know I rag on happiness, but 24 what is it, 8, 16, 24? That's pretty freaking good for just 3 tiles working. It's not something I go out of my way for, obviously. But I'd be happy to settle next to this as Isabella. I wouldn't poo-poo it. I would definitely enjoy having it there. Here comes another controversial one, the Redwood Forest. Obviously regarding the production, the fact that you can walk around it, it's kind of a better version of Mount Kilimanjaro, to be honest. But I hate this wonder. I hate this natural wonder so much. It's in every freaking game. It feels like it's in every game. I'm sick of seeing it in every game. It drives me crazy. I don't think the extra bonus is all that great. It's obviously better than Mount Kilimanjaro, but how much better is it? I don't think the science and the culture on vegetated terrain is that good. You're probably going to want to actually develop that terrain. I don't think it carries over after you develop it. So it's kind of meh. Obviously, you get it on the main tiles when you're using it, but I don't think you get the bonus with Isabella regarding that anyhow. So at best, I can just consider this a better version of Mount Kilimanjaro, but it's still just B tier. It's just slightly higher on the B tier than Mount Kilimanjaro, as far as I'm concerned. Regarding the adjacency bonus, sorry, not the adjacency bonus, the extra bonus on vegetated terrain, again, you're probably going to want to develop that terrain. Who really keeps woodcutters on the trees? I'm not a big saw pick guy in woodcutter rural area. I generally use like the forests for specifically putting my buildings down. A lot of times forests just tend to get in the way, so it's not something I go out of my way to keep and maintain over time. And for that reason alone, I don't consider Redwood Forest worthy of anything better than B tier. Alright, here comes a very, very, very difficult one to rate. And the reason why I consider this one difficult to rate is because of the fact that it's an active volcano tile. And the fact that it's a coastline tile, too. So, to get the absolute bonus out of Thera, or Thera, however you pronounce it, to get the absolute bonus out of it, you literally have to settle next to a volcano. Otherwise, you're not going to get all of the tiles, because I think it's up to 5 tiles, and they tend to be long away from the coastline. So long ways from the coastline, meaning that if you settle one away from the coastline to avoid the volcano, not to mention doing that is kind of bad anyways, because you're losing the coastline bonuses. You're not going to be able to do all of the things that you would with the coastline until later on anyways, so that hampers you regardless. And for that reason alone, I don't think it's really worth settling next to this one as everybody. At best, I got to give it low C tier. I almost gave this an F tier for everybody. For Isabella, on the other hand, double bonus on culture, and it's 5 tiles. This is a worse version. Well, I mean, it's a slightly better, but also a worse version of Hoerikwaggo. It makes better use of the coastline tiles in comparison to Hoerikwaggo, which ends up wasting ground tiles that you can build on, and you can't really walk around. With coastal tiles, you can't walk. Well, I mean, you can swim around them, but I don't know. I consider this A tier for Isabella just because of the double bonus on the culture. Not to mention you get gold with the memento on each tile for coastlines at that point, and you're not wasting any building development slots doing that. I don't really consider like lighthouses or fishing bits to be development spots at that point. I consider mostly flat land where you can build wonders and non-water wonders to be more conducive in that regard. So I consider this an A tier for Isabella. For everybody else, though, it kind of ruins how you would normally settle, and unless you really want to live next to a volcano, or if you want to give up a couple tiles and just get a partial on it and then maybe put a city on the other side and then get the remainder of them. You could do that too, but again, then you would have to use 2 cities just to get the full benefit of one wonder. It's C tier. It's below mid. It's below average. Alright, next up is Torres Del Paine. I have to admit, I really love this wonder. I probably shouldn't rate it so high. A lot of other people are going to point out that my personal love for this wonder doesn't mean that it is the absolute best for everybody else, but for me personally, I love Torres Del Paine because of the fact that you can ignore rough terrain for the rest of the game with the land units that move next to it, and if you build your city next to it, you're obviously going to move the unit right afterwards. So every time you build a unit in the city that's built directly next to this, you're going to have a unit that can ignore rough terrain for the rest of the game. Make that your military compound where you build units, and every one of your units will ignore rough terrain. And again, you won't always have rough terrain next to you, but believe me, for the instances where you do have rough terrain next to you, you're going to move faster than your enemy can, and that is a big advantage. It's like having a army commander around every unit. You're not always going to be able to have army commanders around every unit, so, and again, you might want to choose other perks for your army commander than the ones that allow the army units around him to ignore terrain. So this is a huge bonus better than the yields would indicate. In fact, I consider this such a huge bonus, and I've made good use of this before, to the point where I consider this an S-tier natural wonder. I love this wonder, and as Isabella, you can actually force this wonder to spawn as your initial natural wonder. When you're starting out as Isabella and you start next to Torres Del Paine, just go pure military, conquer everything around you. You won't regret it. It is scary powerful. I love this wonder. Well, from a wonder that I love to a wonder that I absolutely hate. This wonder is worthless. This wonder is the garbage wonder of the desert tiles for every Civ game. This natural wonder is a waste. Every time I see it, I just shake my damn head because I'm not going to be using the desert terrain anyways. If I am using the desert terrain, I'm putting buildings there, and I'm not sure if the culture transfer through. Even if the culture does transfer through, even if Isabella does give a ×2 on it, it's not worth it. This is because how often do you get a bunch of desert tiles in one of your cities anyways? I think you get maybe at most 3 or 4. It's such a waste of a wonder, I think, and happiness just isn't worth it. Even with Isabella's ×2 bonus, the 12 happiness you get from one wonder is pretty decent, and I will admit that, but in comparison to every other wonder, this one's just a waste. I think it deserves an F tier just for that fact alone. And you can't really walk through it either, so it's kind of in the way as well, and I don't think it really gives you mountain adjacency. It counts as a desert tile, so you get culture when you work it, but again, it's just a waste. I don't like this wonder at all. I think it deserves this F tier. You can argue if you want. You can say that, oh, there's instances where it's better, and yeah, you can make that argument about everything that I put here in the tier list, but for me personally, when I see this wonder, I die a little on the inside. Alright, Valley of Flowers is one that I consider very, very, extremely tough to rate. The reason why is because of the +10 land trade route range. The problem is it's only for the settlement. It's not for the entire civilization, and for that fact alone, it's pretty much a slightly weak version of Redwood Forest. You don't get the production, you get culture instead. I think I'd rather have the production personally, but I mean, it's not bad. You get 4 tiles for it, and you can walk through it, which is nice, but you can't really develop it. It's kind of like Redwood Forest in that regard. It's weaker though, because you don't get the extra culture and the extra science from vegetated terrain. You get land trade routes, which means you have to build your merchants in that city. And if it's further away, the +10 land trade route range doesn't really help anyways, does it? If it does it, it's civilization based. I mean, I could be wrong, but from what it sounds and from how it reads and from how I personally played, it's based off of the city. And again, if you're far, far away and your Valley of Flowers is far away from everybody else, that bonus is worthless, and it's just a worse version of Redwood Forest at that point. Again, it's still good. It's still Redwood Forest good, but it's not so good that I would go out of my way to find it. I'd be happy to settle next to it if it happened to be there, especially as Isabella. But beyond that, it's just a worse Redwood Forest. Alright, now comes the one that I guarantee I'm going to mispronounce, but I'm going to try to pronounce it anyways. Zhangjiajie. I hope I didn't mispronounce it too badly. I hope whoever speaks the language natively doesn't get upset at me in the comments. I put my absolute best effort into it. But regardless, Zhangjiajie is a very, very good natural wonder. I love this wonder. When I start next to it, I'm feeling good because I'm looking at all the production in the world. Even as a regular non-Isabella civilization or leader, you're loving this. It gives you so much culture from the rough terrain. It gives you so much production just from being there. Just from working the tile, you're getting 4 production. That's a lot of tiles, by the way. It's 4 to 5 tiles, I believe. So you're looking at 16 to 20 production in your city just from settling next to this thing. This is a great great wonder. I don't know how it was so great. It might be the best wonder in the game. It really might. I might consider it the best wonder in the game. Better than Great Barrier Reef, better than Hoerikwaggo, better than Torres Del Paine. I love this wonder. And I love it even more as Isabella, because then you get double the production on top of that. Double the production on 4 to 5 tiles. Oh my goodness. That's 8 per tile. What? 32 to 40 production in the starting city. If you get Zhangjiajie as a starter, and I think I actually did get it once as Isabella. I think that was in patch 1.0, but they might have removed it since then. But if you can still get it, and if it still happens, you're God. Nobody's stopping you. You're throwing millions of units at your nearest neighbor. You're building everything before anybody can even have a chance to even look at anything. Like, you're just unstoppable. 32 to 40 production in a single city from what, 4 to 5 worked tiles? Obviously, you're going to need growth, and you can obviously force growth through just from building growth stuff. It's a snowball, and it is by far, in my opinion, the best wonder in the game. So there you go. That is my tier list. There wasn't that many F tiers, believe it or not. I don't consider that many to be that bad. I'm probably going to get a little bit of hate from my C and F tiers. Specifically, a lot of people seem to really like Redwood Forest. My main issue with Redwood Forest isn't the fact that its yields, it's the fact that it's in every single game. I'm sick of seeing it. I don't want it. Go away. Give me Zhangjiajie. Give me Torres Del Paine. Give me Hoerikwaggo. Give me Great Barrier Reef. Give me Grand Canyon even. In fact, people might even be upset at my placement for Grand Canyon simply because of how hard it is to utilize at times. But I love it. I prefer it over some of the other ones out there. I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for my placement on a lot of these things, but that's just how I feel. Remember, this is all opinion. I did try to explain why I feel everyone deserves its placement, but obviously people are going to be disagreeing with it. Some people might agree with it. If you do disagree with it, leave a comment below. If you do agree with it, leave a comment below. I want to hear from you. I want to hear other people's opinions on these things. I want people to describe to me why they think that I put Torres Del Paine too high. Because obviously rough terrain isn't everywhere in the game. You're not always going to run into positions where you're going to need rough terrain movement, and then the value of this wonder just goes down and plummets, especially if you're playing on like Archipelago. If you're playing Archipelago, or Torres Del Paine is worthless at that point. Well, almost worthless. But I guess you could lower it from S tier and A tier all the way down to B tier, C tier, or even C tier, F tier. But at that point, that's just opinion, that's nitpicking. I hope you enjoyed this, though. I hope this was at least somewhat entertaining. If it was, good, watch my other videos. If it wasn't, well, I mean, tough cookies. I don't think anybody else there did a tier list for natural wonders yet, but I'm sure the big guys out there will eventually get around to it. I hope this was useful to whoever watches, though. And this is my first time doing a tier list, so forgive me. Obviously, I wanted to do it differently. That's why you're looking at a different screen than what you're probably used to seeing for a tier list. In the future, I'm going to keep doing this, though, because I want to be unique. I want to be different. I like being different. It's a little extra work, but it's better in the long run, I think. It looks prettier to me, personally, even if it isn't for everybody else. Regardless, thank you for watching. If you watched this far, you are a king! And beyond that, hail Hydra Cat.